His wife is on a business trip, his daughter is at college, and his son, Liam, is hiding behind the closed door of his room. But something's wrong. Something dark, unspeakable, that makes James's heart clench with dread. At night, when the clock strikes 2, the bedroom door slowly creaks open. It's not his wife. It's Liam. His hand trembles as he touches his father, his eyes screaming a secret he can't voice. What is his son hiding? Why does he come tonight? Every second of this scene is an explosion of emotion that will leave you breathless. James Thompson's heart thudded in his chest as he stood in the kitchen, the faint glow of a single bulb casting shadows across the counter. At 43, he thought he had life figured out, a steady accounting job, a cozy suburban home, a wife who loved him, and 2 kids who made it all worthwhile. But tonight, with Sarah away on another business trip and Emily off chasing her dreams at college, the house felt like a hollow shell, echoing with a silence that gnawed him. His 19-year-old son, Liam, was upstairs, probably buried in one of his engineering books or tinkering with that 3D printer he was obsessed with. But something was off. Liam had been different lately, distant, his eyes carrying a weight James couldn't decode. Was it just college stress? Or was there something deeper, something James had missed? He gripped his coffee mug, the warmth doing little to ease the chill in his bones. "I'm a good dad, right?" He thought, but the question stung. Years ago, a fight with Sarah had shaken their family, a shouting match over money, stress, and things left unsaid. Liam, just a kid then, had heard it all, his small face pale as he hid in the hallway. James had brushed it off, told himself kids bounce back. But now, with Liam's fleeting glances and quiet withdrawals, doubt crept in. Had that fight left a scar James couldn't see? I should have checked on him more, he thought, his stomach twisting. I should have been there. Dinner had been a disaster. James had tried to keep things light, grilling burgers and tossing out questions about Liam's classes. "You still working on that robot thing?" he'd asked, forcing a grin. Liam had barely looked up from his plate, his fork pushing food around. "Yeah, it's fine," he mumbled, his voice flat, his eyes darting to James and then away, like he was hiding something. The silence between them was louder than the clink of dishes, and James felt a pang of failure. "What's going on with you, kid?" He wanted to ask, but the words stuck in his throat. Liam had slipped upstairs after dinner, leaving James alone with the hum of the dishwasher and his own racing thoughts. Now, as he climbed into bed, the emptiness of Sarah's side hit him like a punch. He missed her laugh, the way she'd nudge him during late-night football games, her voice cutting through the announcers with sharp commentary. She'd know what to say to Liam, he thought, pulling the covers tight. She always does. But Sarah was in Chicago, probably charming clients at some fancy conference, and James was left to navigate this alone. He closed his eyes, willing sleep to come, but his mind kept replaying Liam's guarded expression, those searching looks that seemed to beg for something James couldn't name. Sometime past midnight, a soft creak snapped him awake. His heart jumped, eyes squinting into the darkness. The bedroom door eased open, a sliver of moonlight cutting through the blinds. "Sarah," he mumbled, voice thick with sleep, half hoping she'd surprised him with an early return. But no answer came. Instead, he felt the mattress dip, a presence settling on the edge of the bed. His pulse quickened, senses sharpening as a hand brushed his arm, light, tentative, but heavy with intent. It was a touch he knew, the kind Sarah used to ground him in the night, but this was different. Hesitant. "Rat." "Sarah," he said again, sharper now, propping himself up. His eyes adjusted, and his breath caught. It wasn't Sarah. It was Liam, his silhouette unmistakable, shoulders hunched, face half-shadowed, but eyes wide with something raw, fear, longing, maybe both. "Liam." James's voice cracked, a mix of shock and confusion. "What the hell are you doing here?" Liam froze, his hand still on James's arm, the warmth searing through his t-shirt. The air felt thick, charged with a tension that made James's skin prickle. "This isn't right," his mind screamed, but he couldn't move, couldn't pull away. I just wanted to check on you, Dad," Liam whispered, his voice barely audible, trembling with something James couldn't place. The words sounded simple, but they carried a weight that hit James like a tidal wave. Check on him? At 2 a.m.? What's he not saying? James's heart raced, memories flooding back. Liam as a kid, clinging to him after nightmares, his small hands trusting. But this wasn't that. This was something else, something that made James's chest tighten with a mix of dread and guilt. "I'm fine, Liam," he said, trying to keep his voice steady, though it wavered. "It's late. You should be in bed." Liam's hand lingered a moment longer, his fingers trembling before they fell away. He looked down, his breath uneven, like he was fighting to say something but couldn't find the words. Yeah, sorry, he mumbled, his voice thick with defeat. I'll go. He stood, slow and reluctant, and slid down, the door clicking shut behind him. James lay back, his heart pounding, staring at the ceiling as questions swirled. Why was he here? What's going on with him? The touch replayed in his mind, tentative, deliberate, like Liam was reaching for something he couldn't have. James's thoughts spiraled to that fight years ago, the one that had left Liam quiet for weeks. Did I break something in him? He wondered, guilt clawing at him. Did I push him away without realizing it? The house was silent, but the weight of that moment pressed down, heavy and unshakable. Sleep didn't come. Every time James closed his eyes, he saw Liam's face, those wide eyes searching for something James didn't understand. He thought of calling Sarah, asking her what to do, but what would he say? Our son came into my room and touched my arm, and it felt round. The thought made him cringe. He's just lonely, he told himself. He's struggling with college, with Emily gone, with Sarah away. But the way Liam's hand had lingered, the way his voice had trembled, it felt like more than that. Like a secret waiting to spill. By morning, James was a wreck, his coffee bitter as he stood in the kitchen, replaying the night. Liam shuffled downstairs, hoodie up, eyes glued to his phone. Morning, James said, forcing a casual tone, but his voice sounded hollow. Liam glanced up, his expression guarded, a flicker of something fear, in his eyes. Morning, he mumbled, grabbing a mug and avoiding James's gaze. Liam, about last night, James started, his heart in his throat. Liam cut him off, voice sharp. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to freak you out. It was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. James could feel it, the unspoken truth hanging between them like a storm cloud. You sure you're okay? He pressed, stepping closer. Liam's shoulders tensed, his fingers tightening around the mug. I'm fine, Dad. Just drop it. But James couldn't drop it. The memory of Liam's touch, the weight of his silence, burned in his mind. What's he hiding? He thought, his stomach nodding. And why does it scare me so much? He wanted to push, to demand answers, but Liam's closed-off stance stopped him cold. For now, he let it go, but deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. Something was coming, something that would change their family forever. And as Liam disappeared upstairs, James couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was closer than he wanted to admit. What secret is Liam hiding? And can James face it before it's too late? James sat at the kitchen table, his coffee cold, his eyes burning from a sleepless night. Liam's midnight visit replayed in his mind like a broken record. Those wide, searching eyes, the trembling touch on his arm, the whispered, I just wanted to check on you. It wasn't just weird, it was wrong, heavy with a meaning James couldn't unravel. What's going on with you, kid? He thought, his heart twisting. He'd always prided himself on being a good dad, the kind who showed up to Little League games and helped with math homework, but now doubt gnawed at him. Had he missed something crucial? Had he let Liam slip away? The memory of that fight 6 years ago clawed its way back. James and Sarah, screaming in the living room over bills and stress, oblivious to Liam, then just 13, standing frozen in the hallway. You're never here. Sarah had shouted, and James had fired back. Maybe I don't want to be. Liam's small, pale face had haunted James for weeks after, but he'd told himself it was fine, kids forget, kids move on. Now, seeing Liam's guarded glances, James wasn't so sure. Did I break something in him? He wondered, his stomach churning with guilt. Did I push him so far he's reaching out in ways I don't understand? He tried to focus on the morning, flipping through emails on his phone, but his thoughts kept drifting to Liam, still upstairs, probably hiding behind that damn hoodie. James wanted to march up there, demand answers, but what would he even say? Why'd you come into my room last night? Why'd you look at me like that? The thought made his throat tighten. I'm supposed to have this figured out, he thought. I'm the dad. But the truth was, he felt lost, like he was failing the one person who needed him most. Liam finally came downstairs around noon, his steps heavy, his eyes glued to his phone. Hey, James said, forcing a casual tone, though his voice sounded strained. Want some breakfast? I can make pancakes. Liam glanced up, his expression unreadable, a flicker of something shame, in his eyes. Not hungry, he muttered, grabbing a water bottle from the fridge. The silence between them was suffocating, like a wall James didn't know how to climb. Liam, we need to talk, James said, his heart pounding. About last night. Liam froze, his shoulders tensing, his fingers gripping the bottle so tight his knuckles whitened. I said I'm sorry, he snapped, voice sharper than James expected. It was nothing, okay? Just forget it. But his eyes betrayed him, darting to James and then away, like he was begging to be seen but too scared to speak. It wasn't nothing, James said, stepping closer, his voice soft but firm. You don't sneak into my room at 2 a.m. for no reason. What's going on, kid? You can tell me. Liam's jaw tightened, his breath uneven, like he was fighting a battle James couldn't see. I'm fine, he said, but his voice cracked, and for a moment, James saw the scared kid from 6 years ago, the one who'd heard his parents tear each other apart. Liam, please, James pressed, his chest aching. I know things haven't been great. With your mom gone, Emily at college. I get it. The house feels empty. But you've got to talk to me. Liam looked up then, his eyes shimmering with something raw, pain, maybe, or desperation. It's not just the house, he said, voice barely above a whisper. It's like, I'm losing everyone. Emily's gone. Mom's always working. And you, he stopped, swallowing hard, his words hanging like a blade. Me what? James asked, his heart sinking. What did I do? Liam shook his head, turning away. Forget it. I shouldn't have said anything. He started for the stairs, but James grabbed his arm, gentle but firm. No, don't walk away. Talk to me, Liam. I'm here. For a moment, Liam didn't move, his eyes locked on James's, searching, pleading. Then he pulled free, muttering, I can't, and disappeared upstairs, the door slamming shut. James stood frozen, his hands still outstretched, guilt crashing over him like a wave. What did I miss? He thought, his mind racing. He remembered Liam as a kid, always quiet but happy, trailing him at football games, cheering louder than anyone when James coached. But after that fight with Sarah, something had changed. Liam had gotten quieter, his smiles rarer, like he was carrying a weight James hadn't noticed. I should have seen it, James thought, his throat tight. I should have been there. The day dragged on, James moving through chores on autopilot, laundry, bills, anything to keep his hands busy. But his mind was a storm, replaying Liam's words, his trembling voice. I'm losing everyone. What did that mean? Was Liam struggling at college? Was it something deeper, something tied to that fight years ago? James's phone buzzed, Sarah's name lighting up the screen. Relief flooded him, but it was short-lived. Hey, babe, she said, her voice warm but tired. Everything okay there? James hesitated, the words catching in his throat. Our son's acting weird, and I don't know why. But instead, he said, yeah, just quiet without you. How's Chicago? They talked for a few minutes, her voice a lifeline, but then she said something that stopped him cold. You and Liam doing okay? I know things got rough after. You know, that summer. That summer. The fight. The one that had shaken their family, left Liam silent for weeks. Sarah never talked about it, but her voice carried a weight, like she knew something James didn't. What do you mean? He asked, his pulse quickening. Sarah sighed, static crackling on the line. Just check on him, okay? He's been through a lot. She hung up before he could press her, leaving him staring at the phone, his mind spiraling. What's she not telling me? He thought, dread pulling in his gut. Was there something about that summer, something about Liam, that he'd missed? That night, James lay in bed, the darkness pressing in, his thoughts a tangle of fear and guilt. He couldn't shake the image of Liam's face, the way his eyes had begged for something James couldn't give. What does he need from me? He wondered, his heart heavy. He was about to drift off when the door creaked open again, the sound like a gunshot in the silence. His eyes snapped open, heart racing as Liam's silhouette appeared, lit by a sliver of moonlight. Liam, James said, sitting up, his voice a mix of exasperation and worry. What's going on? Why are you here again? Liam didn't answer right away, crossing the room to sit on the edge of the bed, his hands clenched in his lap. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice trembling. I know it's weird. I don't want to be alone. The words hit James like a punch, echoing his own loneliness. But there was something deeper in Liam's voice, something desperate, raw. Liam, talk to me, James said, leaning forward, his voice soft but urgent. What's wrong? You're scaring me. Liam's eyes met his, shimmering with unshed tears. It's like, I'm losing you, he said, his voice breaking. Like I'm losing everyone. And I can't, he stopped, choking on the words, his hands shaking. James's heart shattered, guilt and fear crashing together. Losing me? He thought, his mind reeling. What did I do to make him feel that? Liam, you're not losing me, James said, his voice thick with emotion. I'm right here. I'll always be here. He reached out, resting a hand on Liam's shoulder, the touch grounding them both. Liam leaned into it, just slightly, his breath hitching. For a moment, the air was thick with unspoken truths, the weight of years of silence pressing down. I'm sorry, Dad, Liam whispered, his voice barely audible. I just, I needed to know you're still here. Before James could respond, Liam stood, slipping back into the darkness, the door clicking shut. James sat there, his heart pounding, the words echoing in his mind. I needed to know you're still here. What did that mean? What had happened to make Liam so afraid? And what was Sarah holding back about that summer? As James lay back, staring into the dark, one thing was clear. The truth was coming, and it would change everything. What secret is tearing this family apart? And can James uncover it before it's too late? James's hand shook as he gripped his phone, Sarah's words from last night still echoing in his mind. He's been through a lot. What did she mean? What had happened that summer 6 years ago that left Liam so broken, so desperate to know he was still there? The memory of Liam's trembling voice. I'm losing you cut through James like a knife. He'd spent the day pacing, replaying every moment. Liam's late-night visits, his guarded glances, the way his touch had carried a weight James couldn't ignore. I'm failing him, James thought, his chest tight with guilt. I've been failing him for years. He'd always thought he was a good dad, coaching Liam's little league games, cheering at his science fairs, tucking him in with stories of football heroes. But after that fight with Sarah, when their voices had shaken the walls and Liam had stood frozen in the hallway, something had fractured. James had told himself it was fine, that kids recover. But now he saw the truth. Liam had been carrying that pain alone, and James had been too blind to notice. What kind of father misses that? He thought, his throat burning. What kind of father lets his son feel like he's losing him? Liam had stayed in his room all morning, the door shut tight, the silence louder than ever. James couldn't take it anymore. By afternoon, he stood outside Liam's room, his heart pounding, his fist hovering over the door. I have to fix this, he thought, dread and determination warring inside him. He knocked, soft but firm. Liam, we need to talk. Now. A long pause followed, each second stretching like an eternity, before the door creaked open. Liam stood there, footy up, eyes red-rimmed like he hadn't slept either. What? He said, voice low, defensive. James stepped inside, his gaze sweeping over the familiar chaos of Liam's room. Books piled on the desk, a half-built 3D printed drone in the corner. But it was Liam's face that held him, pale, guarded, yet raw with something unspoken. I'm not mad, James said, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. But we can't keep doing this. You sneaking into my room, acting like everything's fine when it's not. You said you're losing me. What does that mean, Liam? Tell me. Liam's jaw tightened, his hands clenching into fists. It doesn't matter, he muttered, looking away. Just forget it. But his voice cracked, betraying him, and James saw the scared kid he'd failed to protect. It matters to me, James said, stepping closer, his voice breaking. You're my son, Liam. I need to know what's going on. I need to know how to help you. For a moment, Liam didn't move, his breath uneven, his eyes fixed on the floor. Then, like a dam breaking, the words spilled out. You and Mom, that summer, he said, voice trembling. You were screaming, saying you didn't want to be here. I thought you were going to leave. I thought we'd lose you. James's heart stopped, the memory of that fight flooding back, his own angry words, Sarah's tears, Liam's small figure in the shadows. I was just a kid, Liam continued, his voice raw. I didn't know what to do. I kept thinking if I was good enough, if I stayed quiet, maybe you'd stay. But now, with Emily gone, Mom always working, it's like you're slipping away again. And I can't, he choked, tears spilling down his cheeks. James's chest ached, guilt crashing over him like a tidal wave. He's been carrying this for years, he thought, his own eyes stinging. Liam, he said, voice thick. I'm so sorry. I had no idea you felt like that. He reached out, but Liam flinched, stepping back. You didn't see me, Liam said, voice breaking. You didn't see how scared I was. And now, I'm still scared. Every time Mom leaves, every time Emily calls from college, I feel it again, like we're falling apart, and I can't stop it. James's knees nearly buckled. How did I miss this? He thought, his mind reeling. He saw it now, the way Liam's smiles had faded after that summer, the way he buried himself in books and projects, building walls James hadn't bothered to climb. I'm here, Liam, he said, voice desperate. I'm not going anywhere. I swear. But Liam shook his head, tears streaming. You say that, but what if it's not enough? What if I'm not enough? The words shattered James, ripping through every defense he had. He stepped forward, ignoring Liam's flinch, and pulled him into a hug, holding tight as Liam's shoulders shook. You are enough, James whispered, his voice fierce. You've always been enough. I'm the one who screwed up, not you. Liam clung to him, his sobs muffled against James's shoulder, and for the first time in years, James felt the weight of his son's pain, raw and real. They stood like that for what felt like forever, the silence broken only by Liam's uneven breaths. When Liam finally pulled back, his eyes were red but clearer, like a weight had lifted. I didn't mean to scare you, he said softly. I needed to know you're still my dad. James's heart twisted, love and guilt tangling together. I'll always be your dad, he said, his voice steady now. No matter what. His phone buzzed, Sarah's name flashing on the screen. James hesitated, then answered, his voice low. Hey. Sarah's tone was urgent, like she'd been waiting to talk. James, is Liam okay? I should have told you sooner, but that summer, after our fight, it wasn't just about us. She paused, her voice breaking. I had a miscarriage. Liam overheard me talking about it. He thought it was his fault, that he'd done something wrong. James's breath caught, the pieces falling into place, Liam's fear, his silence, his desperate need to hold on. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice hoarse. I didn't know how, Sarah admitted. And Liam, he never wanted. James woke with a lightness he hadn't felt in days, the weight of Liam's confession still heavy, but no longer crushing. The truth about that summer, Sarah's miscarriage, Liam's quiet guilt, the fear that had driven him to those desperate midnight visits, had cracked something open between them. For the first time, James saw his son clearly, not just the quiet kid tinkering with drones, but a young man carrying a wound James had failed to heal. I let him hurt for too long, James thought, his chest tight with regret. But today was different. Today, he'd start fixing it. He found Liam in the kitchen, pouring cereal, his hoodie swapped for a faded Patriots t-shirt James hadn't seen in years. Morning, James said, his voice softer than usual, testing the waters. Liam looked up, his eyes still shadowed but brighter, like a storm had passed. Morning, he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. It wasn't much, but it was enough to spark hope in James's heart. We're gonna be okay, he thought, gripping his coffee mug like a lifeline. Liam, how about we do something today? James asked, leaning against the counter. Just you and me. Like old times. Liam's brow furrowed, surprise flickering across his face. Like what? He asked, cautious but curious. James grinned, a real one this time. How about we hit the lake? Grab the fishing rods, make a day of it. You used to love that. Liam hesitated, then nodded, his smile growing. Yeah, that sounds good, Dad. An hour later, they were at the lake, the same spot where James had taught Liam to cast a line when he was barely tall enough to hold the rod. The water sparkled under the morning sun, but James barely noticed, his focus on Liam, his quiet laughs, the way he fumbled with the bait, the ease returning to his shoulders. Remember the time you hooked my hat instead of a fish? James said, chuckling. Liam rolled his eyes, but his grin was real. You wouldn't let me live it down for weeks, he said, casting his line with a practiced flick. For a moment, it was like they'd rewound time, back to when things were simpler, before fights and silences built walls between them. But the weight of yesterday lingered. As they sat on the dock, lines bobbing in the water, James took a breath, steeling himself. Liam, I need you to know something, he said, his voice low, serious. Liam tensed, his eyes fixed on the wake. I messed up. That summer, when your mom and I were fighting. I should have seen how it hit you. I should have talked to you about the baby, about everything. I'm sorry. Liam's jaw tightened, his hands gripping the rod. It's okay, he said, but his voice was tight, like he was holding back a flood. It's not okay, James said, turning to face him. You were a kid, and you thought it was your fault. I'll let you carry that alone. That's on me. Liam's eyes shimmered, his breath uneven. I didn't want you to hate me, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I thought if I was quiet, if I didn't make trouble, you'd stay. James's heart shattered, the words cutting deeper than anything. How did I let him feel like that? He saw it, guilt clawing at him. He reached out, resting a hand on Liam's shoulder. I could never hate you, he said, voice fierce. You're my son. I love you, no matter what. Liam nodded, swallowing hard, a tear slipping down his cheek. I love you too, Dad, he said, voice breaking. They sat in silence, the weight of their words settling, the lake a quiet witness to their healing. For the first time, James felt like they were on the same side, fighting the same pain together. That evening, Sarah's car pulled into the driveway, her return like a burst of warmth in the house. James and Liam were in the kitchen, tossing together a makeshift dinner, spaghetti, garlic bread, the kind of meal they used to make for Sunday football nights. Sarah walked in, her suitcase thudding to the floor, her smile tired but bright. "Well, look at you two," she said, her eyes softening as she saw them side by side. "Miss me?" Liam grinned, a real one this time, and ran to hug her, his arms tight around her. James watched, his heart swelling, but a flicker of fear lingered. She needs to know the truth, he thought. After dinner, they sat around the table, plates pushed aside, the air filled with the kind of easy laughter James hadn't heard in years. Sarah told stories about her trip. Liam teased her about her terrible taste in conference coffee, and James felt the pieces of their family clicking back into place. But as the laughter faded, he caught Sarah's eye, nodding slightly. It was time. "Liam," Sarah said, her voice gentle, "we need to talk about that summer." Liam tensed, his smile fading, but he didn't look away. "I know," he said quietly. "I'm ready." Sarah took a breath, her hands clasped tight. "When I lost the baby, it broke me," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't know how to talk about it. Not with you, not with your dad. But you heard me, didn't you? On the phone with my sister, crying about it." Liam nodded, his eyes wet. I thought I did something wrong," he said, voice cracking. "Like if I'd been better, it wouldn't have happened." Sarah reached for his hand, tears spilling. "Oh, honey, no. It was never your fault. It was just life. And I'm so sorry we let you carry that." James's throat tightened, his own guilt resurfacing. "We both messed up," he said, looking at Liam. "But we're here now, and we're not going anywhere." Liam's lips trembled, but he managed a small smile. "Thanks," he said, voice soft but steady. I want us to be us again." Sarah pulled him into a hug, then reached for James, drawing them all together. For the first time in years, James felt whole, like the cracks in their family were starting to mend. Later, as Sarah cleaned up the kitchen, Liam lingered at the table, his eyes brighter, his shoulders lighter. "Hey, Dad," he said, hesitant but hopeful. "I was thinking, maybe I'll stick with engineering. I've got this idea for a drone that could help with disaster relief. Want to hear about it?" James's heart leapt, pride flooding him. "Hell yeah, I do," he said, grinning. Liam's face lit up, and as he launched into his plans, James saw the kid he'd always known, bright, passionate, full of dreams. That night, James stood in the doorway of Liam's room, watching him sketch designs at his desk, headphones on, a quiet focus in his movements. "We almost lost this," James thought, his chest tight with gratitude. He'd made mistakes, big ones, but today he'd taken the first step to fix them. He thought of the lake, the laughter, the way Liam's smile had felt like a victory. "I'll be better," he vowed silently. "For him. For us." As he turned to leave, Liam glanced up.